Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Buzzcuts. Do you know when you have those childhood memories that are so strange that you're not sure if it's something you actually witnessed or saw on TV, or if it's something that you just completely dreamt up? Well, today I've dredged up 8 of the most bizarre Canadian children's shows. Some of these are the shows that I grew up with that helped make me strange. Some are from before my time, and probably, frankly, never should have existed, but boy, am I glad that they do. So without further ado, here are 8 of the top most bizarre Canadian kids shows. Number 8, Polka Dot Door.
The polka dot door, the polka dot door. Let's peep through the polka dot door.
Polka Dot Door ranks just below Mr. Dress Up as one of the most beloved Canadian kid shows of all time, so it's easy to forget just how strange it really was. The 2 human hosts, plus Humpty Dumpty, a bear, and some other things, stuck to a strict 5-day schedule Monday to Friday, with Treasure Day, Dress Up Day, Animal Day, etc. But it all built up to the intangible suspense of Thursday. Without fail, the male host would step out just long enough for his female cohort to be abruptly visited by the elusive, towering, mythical Polkaroo. Polkaroo was a marsupial-like creature, with dark fur, a mop of blonde hair, golden epaulets, piercing beady eyes, and a massive thigh gap. If it sounds like something out of a creepypasta, I'm probably on the right track. Most notably of all, though, Polkaroo spoke like any good Pokemon, purely in Polkaroos. As a child, I remember being intrigued and perhaps just a little disturbed by the mysterious and commanding presence of this excitable, gentle giant. And I'll tell you, the host's inability to demonstrably prove his existence to her colleagues was nothing short of exasperating. There was never any clear indication that Polkaroo was a figment of her imagination, but neither was there really any evidence to the contrary. And what was so significant about Thursdays? Well, Thursday, see, was Imagination Day. This could have referred to the imaginary adventures the host would often take with Polkaroo, but since these imagination vacations were depicted in an identical style, it was impossible to tell where the reality ended and the daydreams began. Besides that, the show had a great combination of storytelling and simple exploration. Inspired by BBC's Play School show, Polka Dot Door was produced by TV Ontario and broadcast on networks across the country from 1971 to 1993, before a follow-up series, Polka Dot Shorts, completely ruined the mystique by giving Polkaroo dialogue and a leading role. Sorry, Polkaroo, you used to be cool.
Oh, look, that dinosaur just wants to be friends and shake your paw. Isn't that nice?
Polkaroo.
Number 7, Circle Square.
Come on, Ben, don't be a chicken. Hurry up, come on.
Do I have to?
Come on, baby Ben.
Man, don't be a chicken.
I've never swam before.
What if I drown?
Get in there, Ben. Come on. I thought you said
What happens when a Christian communications charity from Ontario joins up with a summer camp franchise and a national broadcaster? Circle Square is a children's show where every heavy-handed moral and surprisingly grim fable is countered with sickly sweet songs and stiff conversations with smiley treacle and manners so mild they made even Canadians blush.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Stacey, you're back. I learned a great deal today, especially not to say you can't do something anymore. God is always there to help us through anything we do, and there's no excuse for not trying.
Yeah, that's true, Stacey.
Right on.
Yeah.
Hey everyone at home, please join us in this next song by turning to number 60 in your songbooks, Reason to Be.
Despite its conservative motives, Circle Square thrived for almost 10 years until 1986. Reruns still air on Canada's Trinity station, where it's probably more at home than on the mainstream global network where it got its start. Some of the summer camps from which it derived its name still exist as well, so diehard fans can check out the Circle Square Ranch in Wolseley, Saskatchewan, where I once was stranded while riding a unicycle, but that's another story.
Oh no, he told them he couldn't swim, but nobody listened to him.
This story did not have to end this way.
Number 6, Reboot. There's something super weird and yet timeless about a kid's show whose plot hinges on the main character confirming the existence of the real universe we all already know exists.
They say the user lives outside the net and inputs games for pleasure. No one knows for sure, but I intend to find out. Reboot!
It's kind of like a reverse Matrix, except that this kid's show that took 14 years to get off the ground still came out 5 years before that supposedly groundbreaking sci-fi epic. Bob and some other green and blue people live inside a 60s-inspired gaudy 90s Art Deco computer mainframe as they deliver digital pizza and battle computer viruses named after mathematical units and geometric shapes that look like Sonic villain rejects. Why not? A true pioneer in computer animation, Reboot did its best to justify the limitations of its production techniques with an abstract Tron-inspired universe. That doesn't mean the humanoid characters move particularly like real people, though. Despite all the obvious parallels to everyday middle-class America, as a kid I found it pretty hard to relate, and quickly decided it wasn't my cup of tea. Apparently, I missed all the fun, because Reboot had an illustrious 8-year stint on television, traveling to distant lands and spawning TV movies, video games, and even merchandise. As of recording, the first 10 episodes of a Reboot hit Netflix just last week, some 24 years after the first series debuted. Ironically, the live-action reboot The Guardian Code is currently available everywhere except Canada, so I haven't seen it. Unfortunately, it's off to a rocky start though, currently touting a 3 out of 10 rating on IMDb. It's been blasted by the media for ripping off the French animated series Code Lyoko, and even Lyoko co-creator Thomas Romain has suggested something close to plagiarism may be taking place. The backlash to early promotional trailers on social media was so fierce that Nelvana disabled comments. Never a good sign. But the production of Reboot has never been smooth sailing, and the war stories of its original creators might even be more unreal than the show itself. Apparently trying to content the standards and practice department of the show's original network, be it ABC or YTV, was an exercise in futility. The definable outline of women's breasts, family members gently kissing on the cheek, and the very inclusion of Canada's favorite sport were among its original inclusions deemed too controversial for the show's young audience. And here you were thinking censorship only recently went overboard. Imagine literally discovering and developing new animation techniques on a weekly basis to create a show that everyone said was impossible, literally inventing an entire new industry from scratch, only to be sent back to the drawing board because some starch-coated executive thought someone in a foreign country might think the word hockey was crude slang. The Reboot team vented their frustration by taking thinly veiled stabs at the censorship blokes in the show's script, and by encoding swear words in the binary codes plastered in the show's production design. And that, kids, is the responsible way of debating the virtues of free speech.
You've got to help me delete these stupid clothes. It's mega embarrassing.
Well, believe it or not, guys, we are less than halfway through this list, which means that things are going to get a lot more crazy. But before they do, I wanted to invite you to let me know in the comments below what are the strangest, most disturbing or problematic or just weird shows that you remember from your childhood, and let me know where you're from as well. And guys, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to hit the subscribe button and tap that bell for notifications so you know when I post another video on unpopular culture and strange cinematic history. Let's dive back into the Sea of Strange. Number 5, The Waterville Gang. Move over Nemo. You might not find this series on the Disney Channel, or even IMDb, but The Waterville Gang was the splashiest underwater adventure series on Saturday mid-mornings in the 1970s in Canada. Either that, or it was designed specifically to wean children away from the boob tube after the weekend dose of less cerebral shows. I can't quite tell. The Waterville Gang was shot like a weather program if meteorologists wore blue spandex to blend in with the background, equipped with hand puppets representing clamfish, seagulls, turtles, and penguins. This wasn't SpongeBob of the Disco era, although that would be awesome. Instead, it's kind of like an undersea Coronation Street for tots, with saucy, moody sea creatures propelling balls to the fish tank walls of aquatic melodrama.
I'm not unhappy.
For example, check out the synopsis of the last episode. All of Waterville is in uproar as Eloise starts taking embarrassing pictures with the intent to sell. Floundering marriages, false accusations of theft, and apparently tabloid blackmail were all part of the fun. The show was brought to life by writer Barry Rosenberg and Frog Print Theater, a local troupe who provided both puppets and voices. Add a groovy synth score and you have one of the most endearingly strange and underappreciated shows the Great North has practically never seen. The Waterville Gang ran for just 2 seasons, but a growing undercurrent of fans helped keep reruns on air for 10 years, elevating the Waterville Gang to obscure cult classic status. Number 4. Once Upon a Hamster. Whoever thought it was a good idea to set loose various species of live rodents together in close proximity on RC vehicles in uncontrolled environments and film it for the entertainment of small children was pretty genius, actually. And it turns out The Who was 2 editors of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. After a pilot of Once Upon a Hamster was turned down by their own employers, David Ellison and Paul Sutherland took it to the BBC in England, where it was produced and broadcast and eventually sold to 34 countries in the early 60s as Tales of the Riverbank. So I guess the original version, technically while created by Canadians, isn't a Canadian show, although it was re-released here with a Canadian voice cast as Once Upon a Hamster, aka Hammy the Hamster. I, however, grew up with the 1995 remake, which was technically Canadian, co-produced by YTV and Channel 4, and narrated and partially voiced by the storyman Paul Sutherland.
Oh, hi there.
Even at age 5, I was keenly aware of the show's unique production values. The way the characters rarely looked at each other whilst conversing, and scurried around aimlessly outside of their close-ups, which were often shot in completely different locations. And the way the only thing differentiating GP's voice from the rest of the cast was that annoying, repetitive intonation. As a 5-year-old, I was also paranoid about the cast running off into the bush forever, which you have to imagine probably happened on occasion. In retrospect, the 1995 version is considerably less charming than the original, but growing up, it turns out nothing could top a frickin' mouse on a motorboat, you know? Number 3, PJ Katie's Farm. Somehow the lowest tech show on this list is also one of the newest, I think. It's hard to say since PJ Katie's Farm also isn't on IMDb. I derived most of my knowledge from a simple text document downloaded through a redirect link I found on an obscure Wikipedia listing, which is fitting for a show as arcane and low budget as PJ Katie's.
Why am I in diapers? Huh? You sicko!
YTV is Canada's version of Nickelodeon, and YTV program jockey Jennifer Rassicott, aka Katie for some reason, got the task of providing 6:30 a.m. weekday entertainment for the tots with little more than some Fisher-Price toys, a bunch of popsicle sticks, and farm animals crudely shaped out of Crayola model magic.
You are here farm.
Somehow PJ Katie makes it work, improvising madcap agricultural escapades with vibrant enthusiasm and just a touch of awkward self-consciousness. Voice actors? Who needs them? Editing? For chumps. Bloopers? Leave them in.
And the silo fell over in a big gust of wind! Mo, it's an omen, Mo! That silo only falls when bad things are going to happen, Mo. Thank goodness it just went up back by itself.
What presumably started as YTV execs scraping the bottom of the proverbial farm barrel for material soon took on a life of its own, as PJ Katie developed a much broader fan base than originally intended. Maybe it was YTV's legendary popularity with budding young stoners, or children who gravitated to the show's raw authenticity.
Guess who I am?
But something kept PJ Katie's Farm on air for at least 2 years, and in the hearts and minds of Canadian millennials to this day.
And blew the horse. Now, get on the sled, D-Pie.
Number 2, today's special. What's stranger than a kangaroo mutant who only shows his face when no men are present? How about a mannequin brought to life in the dead of night by a literal mall rat? I mean, they claim it's a mouse, but look at that thing. Don't worry though, kids. There's an inexplicably small and wrinkly security guard to watch over things. Released 6 years before 1987's Mannequin starring Kim Cattrall, today's special introduced the idea of a magical dummy prop brought to life by a bumbling magician and condemned to live out his life after hours in a Canadian department store, which is pretty much my worst nightmare. And now that I've said that, I'll probably end up working janitorial night shifts at the local Walmart. The show's unconventional cast didn't stop with Fiberglass Jeff, though, because what unintentionally creepy kids show wouldn't be complete without an all-controlling HAL-like talking computer system and a mime? In all honesty, today's special was a pretty great show, with exceptional production values and unique engaging plots. Perhaps I only found it a tad unsettling because of its playful portrayal of reality, with human characters playing puppets and mannequin characters played by humans. Adding to the unusual and arguably eerie atmosphere was the fact that it was shot at a real Simpsons department store after hours, with occasional scenes outdoors offering kids a rare glimpse of the rain-slick nightlife of downtown Toronto after, bedtime.
Sometimes dreams don't seem so scary when you talk about them.
Today's special was another TVO production. It ran for 6 years and was eventually picked up by Nickelodeon. So it's not that weird. There's an excellent fan-made website too, so check it out in the links below. Number 1, The Ren and Stimpy Show. Ren and Stimpy belongs on this list because it doesn't really belong on this list. Let me explain. In 1991, just 2 years after the mainstream debut of The Simpsons, the very concept of adult cartoons was still in its infancy, and it was left up to the predominantly children's networks like Nickelodeon to really push the boundaries of the format. Enter John Kricfalusi, an eccentric Sheridan College dropout with a radical style and a reputation for talent. The early years of Golden Age cartoons were Kricfalusi's main inspiration, harkening back to the dirty 30s when the line between children and adult animation was about as clear as Scrappy's moral code, which is to say, muddy. Really, really muddy. In 1991, Ren and Stimpy was unlike anything anyone had seen on TV. It was crass but clever, brutally violent but strangely lovable, and it was amazingly inappropriate and creepy yet helplessly immature. Kind of like its creator, according to yesterday's news, but that's another can of worms altogether. While Reboot was being censored for brotherly pecks on the cheek, somehow Ren and Stimpy were filling airtime on Nickelodeon by selling rubber nipples, going to hell, and beating the living crap out of alcoholics. Go figure. It wasn't just Ren and Stimpy's vulgar balls that set it apart, it also broke all conventions of contemporary kids' entertainment. It had recurring characters but no regard for continuity, instead playing like a late-night sketch show with the mainstay cast of character actors. This allowed the plots, like Golden Age cartoons, to develop and conclude in surprising ways, in contrast to your average Saturday morning serial, where meaningful plot development is incompatible with the core format. Ren and Stimpy wasn't just a commentary on humanity, politics, and pop culture, it was also an astute parody of its own medium and techniques, ridiculing animation frame by frame. All that said, how Ren and Stimpy actually ended up on a children's channel is one of television's greatest mysteries. John Kricfalusi, aka John K, was by all accounts about as explosive and unpredictable as his characters. I once worked with a former employee of John K's studio who claimed the quality of animation was just about the only thing he cared about, welcoming animators to improvise on the fly, censoring nothing, and commonly missing key deadlines. Combined with the inevitable controversy surrounding the show, John K's unusual business practices led to a rapidly deteriorating relationship with Nickelodeon, to a point where the two were reduced to communicating through their legal representatives. But perhaps the strangest and most remarkable thing about the show was its near-complete lack of merchandising. In an era where kid shows were often developed purely around developing and marketing toy brands and franchises, the twisted integrity of Ren and Stimpy would never be crushed by plastic nipple-wearing horse dolls or poop-excreting Stimpy figurines. And even more shocking, this wasn't a result of the show's unconventional subject matter or controversy, but it was actually one of seemingly few mutual decisions between Nickelodeon and Kricfalusi to avoid overexposing the network's most uncomfortable characters. In other words, it was a rare example of integrity in a market overrun by commercialism. Despite all the challenges and lack of licensing profits, the Ren and Stimpy show lasted 5 years on Nickelodeon and later spawned the explicitly mature 2003 series, Ren and Stimpy Adult Party Cartoon. While it may have never really been the right fit for Nickelodeon's family audience, the show was a game changer for the industry and may have eventually helped Nickelodeon in its awkward path to reestablish its viewership with a slightly edgier brand. It's pretty sad to know now that John K allegedly used his influence in the industry to exploit his own fans and proteges, and sadder still that amidst all the backlash and corporate headbanging, this was never seemingly a point of contention.
Since the networks were all run by dykes, they wouldn't let you, because they thought it was offensive to women to draw girls cute, like Katie here.
As hard as it is to believe the very existence of Ren and Stimpy, it's harder still to believe none of his colleagues or clients would have realized the moral corruption of Kricfalusi's twisted personas wasn't limited to the screen. In Marie Soleil, a friendly black sheep stuck in a mound of dirt translates the local francophone human population into English for a dancing mime, who I guess only understands English? I never saw this as a kid, and sadly I don't speak French, so if somebody has a better description of this one, drop it in the comments below. If you ever thought the only thing missing from the kids channel in 1993 was a breaking news program, apparently you weren't alone. YTV had one, and dare I say it, it might have been the closest thing to Vice News for the next 20 years. Kid Stuff might be the grooviest kid show ever created, with singing, dancing, tie-dye wearing, peace-loving young entertainers who appear considerably smaller than even real children. Truly psychedelic. Wow, and just like that, that is the list, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Joseph, and this is Buzzcuts, a channel about the strange, entertainment history, and anecdotes that you never knew you cared about. Be sure to subscribe and tap the bell notification so that you know as soon as I post a video every Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks again for watching, and stay strange.